π.Χ. Νενίκη κάσμενα ζωρέ.
All right. It's just one of those nights where I didn't even want to give it 15 minutes of leeway. I just wanted to get to work. How's it going? Let's see. I see a nice and empty chat room. We'll see if anybody pops in. I gotta change the thumbnail later to look proper. I just couldn't be bothered to find the thing, and I've been listening to the new Rotting Christ pro. It's pro. I think it's basically pro Christau or pro Zristau, perhaps. It kind of means before Christ, right? Like it's kind of like means BC, but like in Latin or at least like the old Greek, right? And there's a lot of fucking like old Greek, and it sounds so fucking dope. So I love the I love where they went with this, and the album cover is sick as fuck. And hold on a second, I think an album inspired by the might of ancient pagan wisdom and can stand as one of the band's most epic outcome ever. Okay, I thought it said... Yeah, cover painting. That's right. They used for their cover album Thomas Cole's The Course of Empire Destruction, which he drew in 1836. And what a magnificent fucking piece. And so I don't know what the original piece looks like. But anyway, we're here for the High Dagger. So, here we are. Let me take a sip. I'm sipping some Danksmjöl tonight. '68. The temporality of disclosedness in general. By the way, this is the first new stream since I made the correction, and I had to do part 29 out of order, and then I also have to move it in the playlist. I'll handle that later. It's in the wrong spot in the playlist, but it's in the playlist. And this is part 33. So I did 29 last time, and now I'm doing 33. I already did 30, 31, and 32. Resoluteness, which we have characterized with regards to its temporal meaning, represents an authentic disclosedness of Dasein, a disclosedness which constitutes an entity of such a kind that in existing it can be its very there. Care has been characterized with regard to its temporal meaning, but only in its basic feature. To exhibit its concrete temporal constitution means to give a temporal interpretation of its structure, taking them each singly, understanding state of mind. Falling and discourse. Every understanding has its mood. Every state of mind is one in which one understands. The understanding which one has in such a state of mind has the character of falling. The understanding which has its mood attuned in falling articulates itself with relation to its intelligibility in discourse. The current temporal constitution of these phenomena leads back in each case to that one kind of temporality, which serves as such to guarantee the possibility that understanding, state of mind, falling, and discourse are united in their structure. Let's see. Okay, there's really not much to be said with that one. All right. A, the temporality of understanding. With the term understanding, we have in mind a fundamental existential, which is neither a definite species of cognition distinguished, let us say, from explaining and conceiving, nor any cognition at all in the sense of grasping something thematically. Understanding constitutes rather the being of there in such a way that on the basis of such understanding, a Dasein can, in existing, develop the different possibilities of sight, of looking around, sich sehens, and of just looking. In all explanations, one uncovers understandingly that which one cannot understand, and all explanation is thus rooted in Dasein's primary understanding. If the term understanding is taken in a way which is primordially existential, it means to be projecting. And I'll read this short one. So, entwerfend sein, and the older editions have entwerfen sein. So this is them pointing out how some translations use the hyphen, and some of them just compound it into one word. Towards a potentiality for being for the sake of which any Dasein exists. In understanding one's own potentiality for being is disclosed in such a way that one's Dasein always knows understandingly what it is capable of. It knows this, however, not by having disclosed some fact, but by maintaining itself in an existential possibility. The kind of ignorance which corresponds to this does not consist in an absence of cessation of understanding, but must be regarded as a deficient mode of the projectedness of one's potentiality for being. Existence can be questionable if it is not to be possible for something to be in question, das in frage stehen. A disclosedness is needed when one understands oneself projectively in an existential possibility. The future underlies this understanding, and it does so as a coming towards oneself out of what current possibility as which one's Dasein exists. The future makes ontologically possible an entity which is in such a way that it exists understandingly in its potentiality for being. Projection is basically futural. It does not primarily grasp the projected possibility thematically. Just by having it in view, but it throws itself into it as a possibility. In each case, Dasein is understandingly in the way that it can be. All right, hold on. Let's highlight. Can I please highlight that? Thank you. Oh, come on. All right, just have to remember that's up there. And hold on a moment. Okay. All right, I don't have to read that. But there's going to be a couple of these. How many of them do I have to read? Italics, subject of disclosed. 3 and 4 I will be reading. All right. Resoluteness has turned out to be a kind of existing which is primordial and authentic. Proximately and for the most part, to be sure, Dasein remains irresolute. That is to say, it remains closed off in its own most potentiality for being, to which it brings itself only when it has been individualized. This implies that temporality does not temporalize itself constantly out of the authentic future. This constancy, however, does not mean that temporality sometimes lacks a future, but rather that the temporalizing of the future takes various forms. So I immediately, in my Jungian brain here, individualized, and I think about that as an individuation process, because the entire nature of this book is intimately subjective. It's given you such a way of breaking down every idiosyncrasy of anything that comes across your attention in any instance. And this is getting into the meat of temporality, isn't it? Okay. Resoluteness has turned out to be a kind of... I'm sorry, I already read that. Okay, to designate the authentic future terminologically, we have reserved the expression anticipation. This indicates that Dasein, existing authentically, lets itself come towards itself as its own most potentiality for being. That the future itself must first win itself, not from a present, but from the inauthentic future. If we are to provide a formally undifferentiated term for the future, we may use the one with which we have designated the first structural item of care, the ahead of itself. Factically, Dasein is constantly ahead of itself, but inconstantly anticipatory with regard to its existential possibility. How is the inauthentic future to be contrasted with this? Just as the authentic future is revealed in resoluteness, the inauthentic future as an ecstatical mode can reveal itself only if we go back ontologically from the inauthentic understanding of of everyday concern to its existential temporal meaning. As care, Dasein is essentially ahead of itself. Proximately and for the most part, concernful being in the world understands itself in terms of that with which it is concerned. Inauthentic understanding. Projects itself upon that with which one can concern oneself, or upon what is feasible, urgent, or indispensable in our everyday business. But that with which we concern ourselves is as it is for the sake of that potentiality for being which cares. This potentiality lets Dasein come towards itself in its concernful being alongside that with which it is concerned. And hey, Pearl Jones is here. I want to let everybody know that Pearl Jones is a friend of mine. We've been deep friends for a long time. I think we met way back in the R. Wayne Steiger days. I haven't talked to Steiger and most of those guys in forever. I've just been in my world. And I was talking with Pearl just the other day, and she's going to be on the channel sometime soon. I haven't figured out when, but we're going to talk. We're going to talk about how she functions with the spirit world, which is very interesting. She's got a very interesting relationship with some ghost imprint of Crowley. I'm going to have her... She talked to me about it. We're going to have her go... Or we're going to have you go through the whole shenanigan situation, explanation, and it's going to be a tremendous amount of fun. I guarantee you ain't never met a gal like Pearl Jones. All right. Anyway, back to the Dasein does not come towards itself primarily in its own most non-relational potentiality for being, but it awaits this concernfully in terms of that which yields or denies the object of its concern. All right, right here. It's annoying. Why won't you let me drag? Close enough. Sondern es ist besorgend seiner Gerberten aus dem was das besorgt, geht oder versagt. It is not clear whether das besorgt or was is the subject of its clause. Dasein comes towards itself from that which with which it concerns itself. The inauthentic future has the character of awaiting. Des Gerwatigens, while the verb awaits has many advantages as an approximation of Gerwartigen, it is a bit too colorless and fails to bring out the important idea of being prepared to reckon with that which one awaits. One's concernful understanding of oneself as they self in terms of what one does has its possibility based upon this ecstatical mode of the future, and only because factical Dasein is thus awaiting its potentiality for being and is awaiting this potentiality in terms of that with which it concerns itself. Can it expect anything and wait for it? Erwarten und warten auf. In each case, some sort of awaiting must have disclosed the horizon and the range from which something can be expected. Expecting is founded upon awaiting and is a mode of that future which temporalizes itself authentically as anticipation. Hence, there lies in anticipation a more primordial being towards death than in the concernful expecting of it, like my anticipations of interviewing Pearl Jones, or being interviewed on Awaken Your Mind sometime tomorrow afternoon. I think we're looking at, like, I don't know, somewhere between like 12 and 3 or something. I don't think we quite nailed down an exact time, which I think is something that Derek needs because of his flow state, which is perfectly fine with me. Tonight was merely supposed to happen tonight, but he had a schedule error, and that happens to me all the time. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let's figure it out. Anyway, understanding as existing. Hold on, did I go too far ahead? In range of something can't. Okay. In each case, sort of waiting must have, I'm just going to go from the ALF. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. In each case, some sort of awaiting must have disclosed the horizon and the range from which something can be expected. Expecting is founded upon awaiting and is a mode of that future which temporalizes itself authentically as anticipation. Hence, there lies in anticipation a more primordial being towards death than in the concernful expecting of it. Understanding as existing is the potentiality for being. However, it may have been projected is primarily futural. I can normally say that, and where's my water bottle? But I am dry. But it would not temporalize itself if it were not temporal. That is, determined with equal primordiality by having been and by the present. The way in which the latter ecstasis helps constitute inauthentic understanding has already been made plain in a rough and ready fashion. Give me a second, I have to check something. That's what I thought. Ha! Okay. There we go. Let's put it over here. Okay. Oh, wait, further back. Perfect. Okay. 1 second. That should be fine. Okay. I had to make sure the music was properly queued up so I don't have to have an awkward pause. Everyday concern understands itself in terms of that potentiality for being, which confronts it as coming from its possible success or failure with regard to whatever its object of concern may be. Corresponding to the inauthentic future, awaiting, there is a special way of being alongside the thing with which one concerns oneself. This way of being alongside is the present, the waiting towards. Gegenwart. In this context, it seems well to translate the expression by a Hendiadys, which, like Heidegger's hyphenation, calls attention to the root meaning of the noun Gegenwart. This ecstatical mode reveals itself if we adduce from comparison this very same ecstasis, but in the mode of authentic temporality, to the anticipation which goes with resoluteness, there belongs a present in accordance with which a resolution discloses the situation. In resoluteness, the present is not only brought back from distraction with the objects of one's closest concern, but it gets held in the future and in having been. Let me pause right here and say this is already alluding to how I deal with work. Because as I navigate my job at work, I get pulled in a million directions, and then priorities stack on top of each other, and then priorities end up shifting, right? There's value shifts because emergencies arise, or a very, very small deed that everybody is expected to do when asked, and like all of a sudden what is supposed to be a task that takes 5 minutes you don't get done until like for like 3-4 hours, and and now you got to go to lunch, but you finally got the first thing done because all the other things because you had to get all the other things done, but you got it all done, but you had to do it in the weirdest breakups of ways, and this is not including the most basic thing that interrupts you, which is a customer. So that present, which is held in authentic temporality and which thus is authentic itself, we call the moment of vision. Okay, there's just cliff notes, which I don't have present, but that's awesome. Moment of vision. I want to know what that is in the German. But anyway, this term must be understood in the active sense as an ecstasis. It means the resolute rapture with which Dasein is carried away to whatever possibility and circumstances are encountered in the situation as possible objects of concern, but a rapture which is held in resoluteness. Okay. Meint die Entschlossin eber in der Entschlossheit gehalten Entrückung des Daseins an das, was in der Situation en besorgbaren Möglichkeiten Umständen begegnet. The verb entrocken means literally to move away or to carry away, but it has also taken on the meaning of the rapture in which one is carried away in a more figurative sense, which the words Entrückung and Ekstase can thus be used in many contexts as synonyms for Heidegger. The former seems the more general. We shall translate entrocken by rapture or carry away, or, as in the case, by a combination of these expressions. The moment of vision is a phenomenon which, in principle, cannot be clarified in terms of the now. Dem fitst. The now is a temporal phenomenon which belongs to time as within timeness. The now in which something arises, passes away, or is present at hand in the moment of vision. Nothing can occur but as an authentic present or waiting towards the moment of vision permits us to encounter for the first time what can be in a time as ready to hand or present at hand. It kind of makes me think about the Eddas when Thor is making decisive choices to use his hammer as excellent examples, because those poems, in their simplistic breakdown of a more complicated drama happening in front of you, is making a demonstration of an issue arising as such, under very simple terms, where you come to greater primordial agreement that, like, well, naturally, because Loki, you know? In contradistinction to the moment of vision as the authentic present, we call the inauthentic present making present. Formally understood, every present is one which makes present, but not every present has the character of a moment of vision. When we use the expression making present without adding anything further, we always have in mind the inauthentic kind, which is irresolute and does not have the character of a moment of vision. Making present will become clear only in the light of the temporal interpretation of falling into the world of one's concern. Such falling has its existential meaning in making present, but insofar as the potentiality for being, which is projected by inauthentic understanding, is projected in terms of things with which one can be concerned. This means that such understanding temporalizes itself in terms of making opposite manner, in terms of the authentic future. So because there is this interesting choice of words, and I believe there was an earlier chapter where they described why the word falling in English is an appropriate kind of physical representation of the feeling, of the effect, of the experience, of the temporality, is that because it's falling and it's falling into your world, it's Lucifer. It's the Lucifer idea. It's the Promethean, right? It is the primordial deity of just you and your absolute basic birthright of being capable of enlightened thought. That's anything that's about Prometheus or Lucifer that does not represent only that in purity otherwise has a social agenda that is part of dark sorcery. There, I said it. Anyway, where was I? Into the world, the authentic future. Okay, we're all the way down here. All right. Inauthentic understanding temporalizes itself as an awaiting which makes present. Gegenwärtigendes. Oh my God, am I not a trooper for doing this? I could ignore all of that shit. I watch so many other people that do reads ignore hard words. I will wrestle that word right in front of you. And awaiting to whose ecstatical unity there must belong a corresponding having been. The authentic coming towards itself of anticipatory resoluteness is at the same time a coming back to one's own most self, which has been thrown into its individualization. This ecstasis makes it possible for Dasein to be able to take over resolutely the entities which it already is, and anticipating Dasein brings itself again forth into its own most potentiality for being. If being as having been is authentic, we call it repetition. Im Vorlaufen holt sich das Dasein wieder in das Eigens sein können vor, das eigentlich gewesen sein meinen werde Wiederholung. On Wiederholung, see... Oh, okay. That was fun to read. I'm glad I did it. But when one projects oneself inauthentically towards those possibilities which have been drawn from the object of concern in making it present, this is possible only because Dasein has forgotten itself in its own most thrown potentiality for being. This forgetting is not nothing, nor is it just a failure to remember. It is rather a positive ecstatical mode of one's having been, a mode with a character of its own. The ecstasis rapture of forgetting has the character of backing away in the face of one's own most been, and of doing so in a manner which is closed off from itself in such a manner, indeed, that this backing away closes off ecstatically that in the face of which one is backing away, and thereby closes itself off too. De Ixtis in Truckung des Vergessens hat den Charakter des sich selbst verschlossenen Ausdruckens vor dem eigensten gewesen, so war das dieses Ausdrucken vor Ekstasisch, das Wover verschließt und in eins damit sich selbst. Heidegger is here connecting the words Indruckung, our rapture, with the cognate verb ausdrucken, back away, which may be used intransitively in the military sense of decamping, but may also be used transitively in the sense of disconnecting. Both entrucken and ausdrucken mean originally to move away, but they have taken on very different connotations in ordinary German usage. Let's see, where was I? I was at 1. It's at the top, that's right. Having forgotten, Vergessenheit, as an inauthentic way of having been, is thus related to the thrown being, which is one's own. It is the temporal meaning of that being in accordance with which I am proximally, and for the most part, as having been. Only on the basis of such forgetting can anything be retained, behalten, by the concernful making present which awaits, and what are thus retained are entities encountered within the world with a character other than that of Dasein. To such retaining there corresponds a non-retaining which presents us with a kind of forgetting in a derivative sense. Just as expecting is possible only on the basis of awaiting, remembering is possible only on that of forgetting, and not vice versa. For the mode of having forgotten one's having been discloses primarily the horizon into which a Dasein lost in the superficiality of its object of concern can bring itself by remembering. Denn im Modus der Vergessenheit erschließt die Gewessenheit primär den Horizont in den hinein das Ende Außerlichkeit des besorgten verloren Dasein sich erinnern kann. Here, there is presumably a deliberate contrast between the idea of externality in the root meaning of Außerlichkeit, superficiality, and the idea of putting oneself into something, which is the original sense of sich erinnern, to remember. We have tried to bring this out by our rather free translation of in den hinein sich erinnern. Whew! Anyway, The awaiting, which forgets and makes present, is an ecstatical unity in its own right, in accordance with which an authentic understanding temporalizes itself with regard to its temporality. The unity of these ecstases closes off one's authentic potentiality for being and is thus the existential condition for the possibility of irresoluteness. Though inauthentic, concernful understanding determines itself in the light of making present the object of concern, the temporalizing of the understanding is performed primarily in the future. Wow. Okay, there we go. We got through Part A. We're going to read Part B, maybe C. We'll see how long it takes. But in the meantime, we're going to hear Like Father, Like Son.
Passion, love, and faith. Believe your own spirit. This is your Father's saying. Spread your wings and fly. Fly to the ends of a dream. Be yourself and rise, rise. Reborn and scream.
Father's Day anthem. That is a Father's Day anthem right there. That is just every time, you've taken your kid out hunting or something. Anyway. The temporality of state of mind. Understanding is never free-floating, but always goes with some state of mind. The there gets equiprimordially disclosed by one's mood in every case, or gets closed off by it. Having a good mood brings Dasein face to face with its thrownness in such a manner that this thrownness is not known as such, but disclosed far more primordially in how one is. Existentially, being thrown means finding oneself in some state of mind or other. One's state of mind is therefore based upon thrownness. My mood represents whatever may be the way in which I am, primarily the entity that has been thrown. How does the temporal constitution of having a mood let itself be made visible? How will the ecstatical unity of one's current temporality give any insight into the existential connection between one's state of mind and one's understanding? Hang on. One's mood discloses in the manner of turning thither or turning away from one's own Dasein, bringing Dasein face to face with the that it is of its own thrownness. Yeah, you're like, it is what it is, man. Whether authentically revealing it or inauthentically covering it up becomes existentially possible only if Dasein's being, by its very meaning, constantly is as having been. The been is not what first brings one face to face with the thrown entity which one is oneself, but the ecstasis of the been is what first makes it possible to find oneself in the way of having a state of mind. So this really gets into the mind's psychic projection, right? So, like, because everything here it's like, this is all in my mind. I mean, you can say it's outside, like, in all reality, but because you are physically outside of me and are a witness, but everything that I feel, everything that I'm seeing and hearing or whatever, it's a factor on the inside. But I think that there's something to be said about light, however. I think light kind of has a certain exterior presence because, when you're taking in everything, like not like light and sound, right? Like, it's very, very hard to tune out the invisible hum. Like, when everything is pretty dead and quiet, you can practically, like, hear the Schumann resonance of the planet, or at least the resonant field of the area, right? As a certain tonal, like, ringing in the ear kind of bit almost, right? And then, like, if you're looking directly at the sun or whatever, there's that effect on your eyes. If that's all happening in your mind, then the eye wouldn't do that. But we all know physiologically that the eye is reacting to external stimulus, But then again, we all know that because of stuff that we perceive in our mind that is in stuff that we perceive in the world called books and videos, which all of that is within the mind. So, like, I'm just getting into that bit, right? Because this is all the Kybelion, the all, and this all works in accord with Kybelionic thinking, if you ask me, or Hermetic thinking, shall we say. Understanding is grounded primarily in the future. One's state of mind, however, temporalizes itself. Hold on a second. Did I jump ahead? Face to face with that it is. Wait, das, by being very meaning, constantly as having been. The bin is not what brings one face to face with the thrown entity, which one is oneself. Yeah, okay, so having a state of mind. Yeah, okay, so let's go down here to state of mind. Das Bringen vor das Geworfen sehenden, das man selbst ist, schafft nicht erst das Gewissen, sondern das an Extes ermöglicht, erst das sich finden in der Weise des sich Befindens. We have construed das Gewissen and dessen Extes as the subjects of their respective clauses, but other interpretations are not impossible. Okay. Understanding is grounded primarily in the future. One's state of mind, however, temporalizes itself primarily in having been. In our italicizations, we follow the older editions. Gewissenheit, having been, is not italicized. Okay. Moods temporalize themselves. That is, their specific ecstasis belongs to a future and a present in such a way, indeed, that these equiprimordial ecstasies are modified by having been. Right, it's so like, he was talking earlier about mood as well, and I hadn't thought about what I wanted to say yet because I knew that I was identifying exactly what he was talking about, right? It's just like the mood changes. Like if somebody says something that's off in a conversation, right? Not expected at that time, not expected from that kind of person, not even expected in the medium that you heard it. And now all of a sudden, your feelings change because you're looking at something that isn't right to you, and it's unlike what that person does. Right? Now the mood has changed. Now all of a sudden, your sense of relationships with that person and everyone that they know, it makes you seem like you've got none of them at all, right? Because of the meaning that you've extracted out of it, right? Like all of them are going to be over that, like, because I'm not interested in playing this effing game, and running around and telling people this and that. So I go and I have a reaction to that. Because for me, in the manner of my values, the things I pay attention to, that affects my world because of certain social structures that operate within my values, and being able to share that with other people. Right? There's a sense of that operates with me. And so even though sometimes I just want to go hermit, it's also not my nature just to be the hermit all the time. Because, oh God, I look so good. I need to be seen. Right? Anyway, we have emphasized that while moods, of course, are ontically well known to us, bekannt, they are not recognized, erkannt, in their primordial existential function. They are regarded as fleeting experiences which color one's whole psychical condition. Anything which is observed to have the character of turning up and disappearing in a fleeting manner belongs to the primordial constancy of existence. But, all the same, what should moods have in common with time? That these experiences come and go, that they run their course in time, is a trivial thing to establish. Certainly, and indeed, this can be established in an ontophysiological manner. Our tasks, however, is to exhibit the ontological structure of having a mood in its existential temporal constitution. And of course, this is proximally just a matter of first making the temporality of moods visible. The thesis that one state of mind is grounded primarily in having been means that the existentially basic character of moods lies in bringing one back to something. This bringing back does not first produce a having been, but in any state of mind, some mode of having been is made manifest for existential analysis. Dieses stellt die Wesenheit nicht erst her, sondern die Befindlichkeit offenbart für die existentielle Analyse je einen Modus der Wesenheit. The grammar of the first clause is ambiguous. So, if we are to interpret states of mind temporally, our aim is not one of deducing moods from temporality and dissolving them into pure phenomena of temporalizing. All we have to do is to demonstrate that except on the basis of temporality, moods are not possible in what they signify in an existential way or in how they signify it. Our temporal interpretation will restrict itself to the phenomena of fear and anxiety, which we have already analyzed in a preparatory manner. We shall begin our analysis by exhibiting the temporality of fear. Fear has been characterized as an inauthentic state of mind. To what extent does the existential meaning which makes such a state of mind possible lie in what has been? Which mode of this ecstasis designates the specific temporality of fear? Fear is a fearing in the face of something threatening, of something which is detrimental to Dasein's factical potentiality for being. Sorry about that. I know it's contagious. Forgive me. Fear is in the face of something threatening, something that is detrimental to Dasein's potentiality for being, and which brings itself close in the way we have described within the range of the ready-to-hand and present-at-hand in which we concern ourselves. And isn't this also kind of in, when we're talking about that kind of fear, threatening, aren't we talking about, he's probably going to mention it, being towards anticipation towards death? Yes? Okay. Which mode of this ecstasis designates the specific temporality of fear? Jeez, kept reading that. Right hand, present hand, ourselves. Fearing discloses something threatening, and it does so by way of everyday circumspection. A subject which merely beholds would never be able to discover anything of the sort. But if something is disclosed when one fears in the face of it, is not the disclosure a letting something come towards oneself. Ein auf sich so kommen lassen. Has not fear been rightly defined as the expectation of some oncoming evil? Eins achkommenden Übels, malum futurum. Excuse me, whoops. Is not the primary meaning of fear the future, and least of all one's having been? Not only does fearing relate itself to something future in the signification of something which first comes on in time, but this self-relating is itself futural in the primordially temporal sense. All this is incontestable. Manifestly, an awaiting is one of the things that belongs to the existential temporal constitution of fear. But proximately, this just means that the temporality of fear is one that is inauthentic. Is fearing in the face of something merely an expecting of something threatening which is coming on, such as expectation, need not be fear already, and it is so far from being fear that the specific character which fear as a mood possesses is missing. This character lies in the fact that in fear the awaiting lets what is threatening come back, zur kommen, to one's factically concernful potentiality for being. Only if that to which this comes back is already ecstatically open can that which threatens be awaited right back to the entity which I myself am. Only so can my Dasein be threatened. Zurück auf das Ende, das Ich bin, kann das bedrohlich nur gewärtigt und so das Dasein bedroht werden, wenn das Worauf des Zurückhof schon überhaupt ekstatisch offen ist. Okay. Oi. Okay, down here. The awaiting which fear is one which is afraid for itself, that is to say, fearing in the face of something, is in each case a fearing about. Therein lies the character of fear as mood and as effect, when one's being in the world has been threatened and inconcernful, and it concerns itself with the ready to hand. It does so as a factical potentiality for being of its own. In the face of this potentiality, one backs away in bewilderment, and this kind of forgetting oneself is what constitutes the existential temporal meaning of fear. Okay, so hold on. We're going to do some Greek and some Aristotle here. But first, I don't have to read that. Okay. Aristotle rightly defines fear as a kind of depression or bewilderment. Interesting. Let me see what this. Let me see if I can find that term in here. Hold on. You see, it's trying to. Like, this is not like the best list it could be. Yeah, okay, so this list doesn't cut it. It's like, oh, you know what? Oh, I see. Okay, so this is just for words that are present in Chapter 7. Okay. So I've been using this to find the wrong things half the time. Okay, alright, that's whatever. So anyway, a kind of depression or bewilderment. This depression forces Dasein back to its thrownness, but in such a way that this thrownness gets quite closed off. The bewilderment is based upon a forgetting. When one forgets and backs away in the face of a factical potentiality for being which is resolute, one clings to those possibilities of self-preservation and evasion, which one has already discovered circumspectively beforehand. Which is what everybody did in 2020. That's exactly what everybody did in 2020. That's exactly. That is so quantifiably, accurately, beyond a shadow of a doubt true in its self-evidence that it's astounding. This book's amazing. Anyway. Okay. Oops, I'm sorry, hold on. I'm just getting to the... Okay. When concern is afraid, it leaps from next to next because it forgets itself and therefore does not take hold of any definite possibility. Every possible possibility offers itself, and this means that the impossible ones do so too. This man who fears does not stop with any of these. His environment does not disappear, but it is encountered without his knowing his way about in it any longer. Okay. All right, I don't have to read any of these. Okay. The bewilderment making present of the first thing that comes into one's head is something that belongs with forgetting oneself in fear. It is well known, for instance, that the inhabitants of a burning house will often save the most different things that are most closely ready to hand. When one has forgotten oneself and makes present a jumble of hovering possibilities, one thus makes possible that bewilderment which goes to make up the mood character of fear. The having forgotten, which goes with such bewilderment, modifies the awaiting too, and gives it the character of a depressed or bewildered awaiting, which is distinct from any pure expectation. The specific ecstatical unity which makes it existentially possible to be afraid temporalizes itself primarily out of the kind of forgetting characterized above, which as a mode of having been modifies its present and its future in their own temporalizing. The temporality of fear is a forgetting which awaits and makes present. The common sense interpretation of fear, taking its orientation from what we encounter within the world, seeks in the first instance to designate the oncoming evil as that in the face of which we fear, and correspondingly to define our relation to this evil as one of expecting anything else which belongs to the phenomenon remains a feeling of pleasure or displeasure. How is the temporality of anxiety related to that of fear? Hang on a second. So I'm down there. Sorry, excuse me. I am trying to find... I just want to sense to the end of the section. That looks like it. There it is. Okay. A little bit to go. Let's see. I think it was over here. So our aim is not deducing moods from temporality and dissolving them into pure phenomenon or temporal. Wait a minute. Face to face with that it is. Right, okay. Oh, wait. Okay, that's right. Down. I'm sorry. Forgive me, I have made a fool of myself and lost the page, but I think I'm over here. Oh, yeah. That of off fear. I'm sorry. I thought I was the first line. I was the second line. Let's see. We have called the phenomenon of anxiety a basic state of mind. Anxiety brings Dasein face to face with its own most being thrown and reveals the uncanniness of everyday familiar being in the world. Anxiety, like fear, has its character, formally determined by something in the face of which one is anxious and something about which one is anxious. But our analysis has shown that these two phenomena coincide. This does not mean that their structural characters are melted away into one another, as if anxiety were anxious neither in the face of anything nor about anything. Their coinciding means rather that the entity by which both these structures are filled in Dasein erfüllensiend in the same, namely Dasein, in participation, that in the face of which one has anxiety is not encountered as something definite with which one can concern oneself. The threatening does not come from what is ready to hand or present at hand, but rather from the fact that neither of these says anything any longer. Environmental entities no longer have any involvement. The world in which I exist has sunk into insignificance, and the world which is thus disclosed is one in which entities can be freed only in the character of having no involvement. Anxiety is hold on a second. Anxiety is anxious in the face of the nothing, of the world, but this does not mean that in anxiety we experience something like the absence of what is present at hand within the world. The present at hand must be encountered in just such a way that it does not have any involvement whatsoever, but can show itself in an empty mercilessness. This implies, however, that our concernful awaiting finds nothing in terms of which it might be able to understand itself. It clutches at the nothing of the world, but when our understanding has come up against the world, it is brought to being in the world as such through anxiety. Being in the world, however, is both what anxiety is anxious in the face of and what it is anxious about. To be anxious in the face of does not have the character of an expecting or of any kind of awaiting. That in the face of which one has anxiety is indeed already there, namely Dasein itself. In that case, does not anxiety get constituted by a future? Certainly, but not by the inauthentic future of awaiting. Okay, hang on. So once I'm down here, yeah. Alright, this is going, I feel like I need another break right now. How long was it? How long has it been? When did I take the last break? I can look at this thing, it'll show me no? Quite a while, apparently. It's been 30 minutes at least? It has been 30 minutes at least. Okay, that's great. Hold on. So let's take a break right at this moment right here, and yeah, we'll keep going. This is going to be one chapter tonight. This is a doozy of a chapter. So let's move on, and this is called The Sixth Day. Hey, all right, we're back. All right. Just a quickie. Anxiety discloses an insignificance of the world. And this insignificance reveals the nullity of that with which one can concern oneself, or, in other words, the impossibility of projecting oneself upon a potentiality for being which belongs to existence and which is founded primarily upon one's object of concern. The revealing of this impossibility, however, signifies that one is letting the possibility of an inauthentic potentiality for being be lit up. What is the temporal meaning of this revealing? Anxiety is anxious about naked Dasein, and as something that has been thrown into uncanniness. It brings one back to the pure that it is of one's own most individualized thrownness. This bringing back has neither the character of an evasive forgetting nor that of a remembering, but just as little does anxiety imply that one has already taken over one's existence into one's resolution and done so by repeating on the contrary. And done so by repeating. On the contrary, anxiety brings one back to one's thrownness as something possible which can be repeated, and in this way it also reveals the possibility of an authentic potentiality for being, a potentiality which must, in repeating, come back to its throne there, but comes back as something future, which comes towards Zukunftiges. The character of having been is constitutive for the state of mind of anxiety, and brings one face to face with repeatability is the specific ecstatical mode of this character. The forgetting which is constitutive for fear. Let me read that again. Okay. The character of having been is constitutive for the state of mind of anxiety, and bringing one face to face with the repeatability is the specific ecstatical mode of this character. Bringing one face to face with repeatability. Yeah, okay, interesting. I have to stew on that. I think I get it, but I'm just, I'm surprised that it has that characteristic. I know that the repeatability is there for me, right? It turns into this funny kind of thing about making mistakes, right? Or what feels like mistakes, right? Because you have a certain modality with people, because you enjoy a certain way that you're treated by people. And everything is copacetic, and it's understood the way that you treat people, and how people treat you. Then something happens where somebody's world shifts, and all of a sudden there's a difference between you that isn't there anymore. This difference then has its time and place of emergence, and how it throws you off kilter, because you don't know where it came from. You just know that once it's out, you know that it's a thing that came from somewhere, right? And that there's an entire situation going on that would lead to that moment. The forgetting which is constitutive for fear bewilders Dasein and lets it drift back and forth between worldly possibilities which it has not seized upon, in contrast to this making present which is not held onto. The present of anxiety is held onto when one brings oneself back to one's own most thrownness. The existential meaning of anxiety is such that it cannot lose itself in something with which it might be concerned. If anything like this happens in a similar state of mind, this is fear, which the everyday understanding confuses with anxiety. But even though the present of anxiety is held on to, it does not as yet have the character of the moment of vision, which temporalizes itself in a resolution. Anxiety merely brings one into the mood for a possible resolution. The present of anxiety holds the moment of vision at the ready, the auf dem Sprung. As such a moment, it itself and only itself is possible. Excuse me. The temporality of anxiety is peculiar, for anxiety is grounded primordially in having been, and only out of this do the future and the present temporalize themselves. In this peculiar temporality is demonstrated the possibility of that power which is distinctive for the mood of anxiety. In this, Dasein is taken all the way back to its naked uncanniness and becomes fascinated by it. Oh, wow, this is going to be... Ooh, there's etymology in here. Okay, hang on tight. It's going to be a mouthful. Let's line that up for you. En der eigentümlichen Sichtlichkeit der Angst, das sei ursprünglich in der Wesenheit gründet und aus ihr erst Zug und Gegenwart sich seisen erwies, da sei sich what? Sich gewissen Gegenwart sich seisen erwies sich sich da Wohlkeit der Machtigkeit durch die sich die Stimmung der Angst auszeichnet. In ihr ist das Dasein wohlig auf sein Nacht Unliebigkeit zurückgenommen und von ihr weggenommen. In these two sentences, there are no less than 6 feminine nouns which might serve as the antecedents of the pronoun sei und ihr in their several appearances. We have chosen the interpretation which seems most plausible to us, but others are perhaps no less defensible. The etymological connection between zurückgenommen, or taken back, and benomen, fascinated, does not show up in the English version. It is obviously deliberate, and it gets followed up in the next sentence. This fascination, however, not only takes Dasein back from its worldly possibilities, but at the same time gives it the possibility of an authentic potentiality for being. Come on. Yes, neither of these moods, fear and anxiety, ever occurs just isolated in the stream of experiences. Each of them determines an understanding or determines itself in terms of one. Let's see. Beide Stimmungen, Furcht und Angst kommen jedoch nur isoliert vor im Erlebnisraum, sondern bestimmen je ein Verstevens sich aus einem solchen. Heidegger writes bestimmen with a hyphen to call attention to the fact that the words bestimmen, determine, and Stimmung, mood, have a common stem. Fear is occasioned by entities with which we concern ourselves environmentally. Anxiety, however, springs from Dasein itself. When fear assails us, it does so from what is within the world. Anxiety arises out of being in the world, as thrown being towards death. When understood temporally, this mounting of anxiety out of Dasein means that the future and the present of anxiety temporalize themselves out of a primordial being as having been, in the sense of bringing us back to repeatability. But anxiety can mount authentically only in a Dasein which is resolute. He who is resolute knows no fear, but he understands the possibility of anxiety as the possibility of the very mood which neither inhibits nor bewilders him. Anxiety liberates him from possibilities from which count for nothing, nichtigen, and lets him become free for those which are authentic. Although both fear and anxiety, as modes of state of mind, are grounded primarily in having been, they each have different sources with regards to their own temporalization in the temporality of care. Anxiety springs from the future of resoluteness, while fear springs from the lost present, of which fear is fearfully apprehensive, so that it falls prey to it more than ever. Wait, is that not 3? No, that is 2. Okay. Die Angst anspringt aus der Zukunft, der Einzelheit, die Furcht aus der verloren, gegenwart die Verstand, die Furcht befürchtet, ihr so erst recht zu verfallen. The grammar of this passage is ambiguous and would also permit us to write the lost present, which is fearfully apprehensive of fear, so that. But may not the thesis of the temporality of moods hold only for those phenomena which we have selected for our analysis? How is a temporal meaning to be found in the pallid lack of mood which dominates the gray every day through and through? And how about the temporality of such moods and effects as hope, joy, enthusiasm, and gaiety? Not only fear and anxiety, but other moods are founded existentially upon one's having been. This becomes plain if we merely mention such phenomenon as satiety, sadness, melancholy, and desperation. Of course, these must be interpreted on the border basis of an existential analytic of Dasein that has been well worked out. But even a phenomenon like hope, which seems to be founded wholly upon the future, must be analyzed in much the same way as fear. Hope has sometimes been characterized as the expectation of a bonum futurum, to distinguish it from fear, which relates itself to a malum futurum. But what is decisive for the structure of hope as a phenomenon is not so much the futural characteristic of that to which it relates itself, hold on, okay, right, itself, okay, good, but rather the existential meaning of hoping itself. Even here, its character as a mood lies primarily in hoping, as hoping for something for oneself. Versicht erhoffen. He who hopes takes himself with him into his hope, as it were, and brings himself up against what he hopes for. But this presupposes that he has somehow arrived at himself. To say that the hope brings alleviation, from depressing misgivings, means merely that even hope as a state of mind is still related to our burdens, and related in the mode of being as having been. Yes, which is why there was a great deal of criticism on the American psyche's adoption of the hope and change vernacular of the Obama campaign. Let's see here. Elation. Okay. Oh, back here. having been. Such a mood of elation, or better, one which elates, is ontologically possible only if Dasein has an ecstatico-temporal relation to the thrown ground of itself. Furthermore, the pallid lack of mood, indifference, which is addicted to nothing and has no urge for anything, and which abandons itself to whatever the day may bring, yet in so doing takes everything along with it in a certain manner, demonstrates most penetratingly the power of forgetting in the everyday mode of that concern which is closest to us. Just living along, das Dahinleben, in a way which lets everything be as it is based on forgetting and abandoning oneself to one's thrownness. It has the ecstatical meaning of an inauthentic way of having been, indifference which can go along with busying oneself head over heels, must be sharply distinguished from equanimity. This latter mood springs from resoluteness, which in a moment of vision looks at those situations which are possible in one's potentiality for being a whole, as disclosed in our anticipation of Zoom, death. Only, hold on a second. Okay, I don't have to read that, and I really have to read that either. Okay. Only an entity which, in accordance with the meaning of its being, finds itself in a state of mind, sich befindet. That is to say, an entity which, in existing, is as already having been, and which exists in a constant mode of what has been, can become affected ontologically. Such affection presupposes making present, and indeed such a manner that in this making present, Dasein can be brought back to itself as something that has been. It remains a problem in itself to define ontologically the way in which the senses can be stimulated or touched in something that merely has life, and how and where the being of animals, for instance, is constituted by some kind of time. All right. Take another break, and then we're going to hit the temporality of falling, which is part C. And then I believe there's also a part D. All right, part C is not too long, and part D is also not too long, because here's the chapter. All right, so we're going to take a break, and then we're going to probably nail part C and part D in one foul swoop. Let's see here. So that means this will be the last song on the album that we hear coming up. 1 second. There we go. All right. Oh, good. So the last song we're going to hear is Yggdrasil.
The Tree of Life.
The ancient of the waystone is hidden
So we're going to get through part C, and we're going to get through part D, and that should be able to get handled real quick. And my buddy Joe from Library of the Untold has popped in to say hi. And my God, how are you not a wrench? There we go. Excellent. All right. Joe, you are a wrench. What's up, my man? I've been doing the Rotting Christ new album for this particular episode of the Heidegger stuff. And right now we're getting into the weeds of the temporality of Dasein. Basically, Dasein's very particular relationship with the flow of time. C, the temporality of falling. In our temporal interpretation. Oh, and please, everybody, go like, share, subscribe, Library of the Untold. He just knocked it out of the park with the Priest Kings, I think is the title of it. The last video premiere that he did, if you're not familiar, you can go watch that. And if you've never watched Library before, his Saturnian Black Cube video is like his that's like his big like welcome to YouTube video. Anyway, in our temporal interpretation of understanding and state of mind, we not only have come up against a primary ecstasis for each of these phenomena, but at the same time, we have always come up against temporality as a whole. Just understanding is made possible primarily by the future, and moods are made possible by having been the third constitutive item in the structure of care, namely, falling has its existential meaning in the present. Our preparatory analysis of falling began with an interpretation of idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity. In the temporal analysis of falling, we shall take the same course, but we shall restrict our investigation to a consideration of curiosity, for here the specific temporality of falling is most easily seen. Our analysis of idle talk and ambiguity, however, presupposes our having already clarified the temporal constitution of discourse and of explanation, interpretation. Curiosity is a distinctive tendency of Dasein's being, in accordance with which Dasein concerns itself with a potentiality for seeing. Like the concept of sight, seeing will not be restricted to awareness through the eyes of the body. Awareness, in the broader sense, lets what is ready to hand and what is present at hand be encountered bodily in themselves with regard to the way they look. Letting them be thus encountered is grounded in a present. This present gives us in general the ecstatical horizon within which entities can have bodily presence. Curiosity, however, does not make present the present at hand in order to tarry alongside it and understand it. It seeks to see only in order to see and to have seen. As this, making present, which gets entangled in itself, curiosity has an ecstatical unity with a corresponding future. And I see what's going on here. Hey, what's up, Creon? Let's see, which gets entangled in itself. Curiosity has an ecstatical unity with the corresponding future and corresponding having been. The craving for the new. Die Gier nach dem Neuen. Here Heidegger calls attention to the etymological structure of the word Neugier. German. Curiosity. Oh, yes, they are very curious people. The craving for the new is, of course, a way of proceeding towards something not yet seen, but in such a manner that the making present seeks to extricate itself from awaiting. Curiosity is futural in a way which is altogether inauthentic, and in such a manner, moreover, that it does not await a possibility, but in its craving just desires such a possibility as something that is actual. Curiosity gets constituted by making present, which is not held onto, but which in merely making present thereby seeks constantly to run away from the awaiting in which it is nevertheless held, through not held on to. Here we go. This is going to be a long one. Let me take a look at chat before I read this annotation. All right, we got Kregon's. Okay, so hey, thanks for the shout out. Nah, bro, you do you. Forget about me. Let's go. Where's Kregon lately? There he is. We are live chat. Wedding crashers. I love it. Heidegger makes my brain upside down. Hey, listen. I tell you something, man. It's the especially looking at this these sections where he's really getting into the weeds with time. Like, these are advanced chapters. Like, if you watch the chapter 1 stuff as I'm reading it, like, you're getting through the introductions. You're getting the basis for like the context for all. There's a context for all these terms because of how in chapter 1 he's complaining about where prime material science is because of how that's shaping our language and philosophy, so on and so forth, right? Because here he's getting into something that, like, this is, like, as somebody who is a Norse animist who does divination, this is the weird. Right? This is getting into the very mechanics of the weird. This is getting into the mechanics of the I Ching. This is the little idiosyncrasies of doing anything in existence at all at any given time. It's quite a monumental thing to take hold of. That's what makes it fucking awesome. We're curious creatures. There are demons out there in the ether. I am as seeing through your eyes, manifest inside the nightmares I create. You are but a dream of I. Love it. Library is a moderator. Yes, I just made him a moderator like 5 minutes ago, Kregon. Like 5 minutes ago. And you know what? Boom. I know who. I got a good sixth sense for the good peoples. So Kregon gets a wrench too. Anyway, let me take a big gulp of my big blue life potion. It's important when you're hydrating to let it swig and swish in your mouth a little bit. The dry mouth is what gets you more than dehydration. So you gotta let it slush around a little bit. It's for your health. Trust the science. So this is German and it doesn't mean what it means, and I'm about to say it. I'm gonna highlight it right here because it's fucking hysterical. There it is. I'm about to say that. Dein wird... I did it. I did it perfectly. Dein Weger wird konstituent durch ein ungehaltenes Gegenwärtigen, das nur Gegenwärtigen, damit... I love how just damn... It doesn't mean damn it, but just damit. I love German for this reason. It hurts to speak it. It's like speaking Orc, which I think is what Tolkien was going for. Damit standig dem Gewärtigen, deren es doch ungehalten, gehalten ist zu antlaufen sucht. This sentence involves a play on the words Gewärtigen and Gegenwärtigen, gehalten and ungehalten, which is not easily reproduced, while ungehalten can mean not held onto, as we have often translated it. It can also mean that one can no longer contain oneself and become indignant or angry. In the present passage, Heidegger may well have more than one meaning in mind. The point would be that in curiosity we are kept, or held, awaiting something which we make present to ourselves so vividly that we try to go behind the mere awaiting of it and become irritated or indignant because we are unable to do so. So, while we are held in our awaiting, we do not hold on to it. Let's see. It just happened. Language reality. I won't, though. Why, thank you, good sir. Thank you. Yes. Congrats, Creeds. All right. Orcs are hot. I love the green skin and horns. Ha! Anyway, let's see. Where was I? So back up to annotation 2. Okay. The present arises or leaps away from the awaiting with which awaiting which belongs to it, and it does so in the sense of running away from it, as we have just emphasized. Okay, I'm reading this one. Die Gegenwart entspringt dem Zugehörigen Gehortigen in dem betonten Sinne des Entlaufens. While the verb entspringen can mean arise from or spring from, as it usually does in this work, it can also mean run away from or escape from, as Heidegger says it does here. We shall accordingly translate it in the context by the more literal leap away, or occasionally by arise or leap away. The point of this passage will perhaps be somewhat plainer if one keeps in mind that when Heidegger speaks of the present, Gegenwart, or making present, Gegenwärtigen, as leaping away, he is using these nouns in the more literal sense of waiting towards. Thus, in one present curiosity, one leaps away from what one has been awaiting and does so by waiting for something different. Also, another thing, Joe, that I was going to say is that, like you asked your dude in that last interview about stuff about Wu Wei and getting to effortless living, right? Because I think that if you can look at being in time, you'll be able to really, notice the very specific things where anxiety arises, right? There's a lot. I make so many references to how I deal with life at work, working at the garden store. And being pulled in 20 different directions and having to do one task out of order because of several interruptions, including customers, emergencies with plants. Some staff he's got to move a heavy thing right this second, so I have to drop everything I'm doing to be the other muscle to haul the thing, and this is why. I start my day with that yoga and pranic breathing, because that kind of puts my nervous system exactly where it needs to be for Wu Wei. Because I think I might be doing Wu Wei, right? It hasn't made me a billionaire yet, but I'm working on my ass backwards life. Anyway, let's see. So I think I just read that, right? Let's go up here. But the making present, which leaps away in curiosity, is so little devoted to the thing it is curious about that when it obtains sight of anything, it already looks away to what is coming next. The making present, which arises or leaps away from the awaiting of a definite possibility which one has taken hold of, makes possible ontologically that not tarrying, which is distinctive of curiosity. The making present does not leap away from the awaiting in such a manner, as it were, that it detaches itself from that awaiting and abandons it to itself. If we understand this ontically, this leaping away is rather an ecstatical modification of awaiting, and of such a kind that the awaiting leaps after the making present. All right. Certainly won't lead. Right. Well, it doesn't lead to money, but the thing is that, like, effortless living, like, whatever you want to do, doing it effortlessly, just like you want to start a multi-billion-dollar company, if you get the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right judgment, I think anybody could woo away that kind of thing, right? I'm learning a number of things about my judgments, including bad judgments in people for a very, 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 very long time. Let's see here. Das Dices dem Gegenwärtigen rausspringt. The idea seems to be that when curiosity makes present new possibilities, the current awaiting is redirected towards these instead of towards the possibilities which have been awaited hitherto. The awaiting gives itself up, as it were, nor does it any longer let any inauthentic possibilities of concern come towards it when that with which it concerns itself, unless these are possibilities only for a making present, which is not held on to. When the awaiting is ecstatically modified by the making present, which leaps away so that it becomes an awaiting, which leaps after, this modification is the existential temporal condition for the possibility of distraction. So, that's, in short, that's like when your kid comes in and interrupts the video, and then it becomes part of the video, and that's a pretty damn woo-way thing to go about it, because, I mean, like, you're going to let that cause anxiety? You're going to let that ruin the thing? Zerilath's beard is racist. Yeah, against which race in particular? That's what I would like to know. Happiness comes from within. Imagine before sleep allows things to fall into place. Marcus must have been Eastern teachings. Okay. Yeah, kids, right, precisely. And that's why, like, the work and the play have to, like, kind of come together. It's just like the way the job that I do is fun for me is because I'm allowed to do it in a playful manner, right? When I started there, I was very automatic because it was early 2022, and people figured out that I was a pureblood and that I had a big problem with covering my beautiful smile. And so, for a short period of time, I just averted a handful of people that were making it kind of a bitch for me and a little bit of a bitch for everyone else, right? And we're almost to a point where I almost never see a mask unless somebody has got, like, maybe a little bit of a cough or something like that, right? It's just that kind of stuff, which is water globules, which before everybody went crazy was actually the one thing that what's his face said that everybody's crucifying, and rightfully so, about wearing them, and that's the little water globules that carry, the nasty stuff. Regardless of your theories about viruses, it's just like, no, I don't want you coughing on my skin. That's gross. It's just gross. The nicest... Really? Mine? Ha! It's just because, I don't know, my smile. Hush, you're just flattering. Flattery, sir. I don't know where it'll get you. But anyway, what it will get you is a tarot and rune reading. I really want to give you one of those, and maybe we'll do that. But anyway, the awaiting. So the awaiting gives itself up, as it were, nor does it any longer let any inauthentic possibilities of concern come towards it from that with which it concerns itself, unless these are possibilities only for a making present which is not held on to. When the awaiting is ecstatically modified by the making present, which leaps away so that it becomes an awaiting which leaps after, this modification is the existential temporal condition for the possibility of distraction. Through the awaiting which leaps after, on the other hand, the making present is abandoned more and more to itself. It makes present for the sake of the present. It thus entangles itself in itself, so that the distracted, not tarrying, becomes never dwelling anywhere. This latter mode of the present is the counter-phenomenon at the opposite extreme from the moment of vision. In never dwelling anywhere, being there is everywhere and nowhere. The moment of vision, however, brings existence into the situation and discloses the authentic there. The more inauthentically the present is, that is, the more making present comes towards itself, the more it flees in the face of a definite potentiality for being and closes it off. But in that case, all the less can the future come back to the entity which has been thrown. In the leaping away of the present, one also forgets increasingly the fact that curiosity always holds by what is coming next and has forgotten what has gone. That's very interesting, and I think curiosity, because of its relationship with concern, which is thus care, which is thus one of the chief attributes of Dasein is care, is that curiosity is a very yin energy force, meaning it has a feminine principle. The curiosity wants to envelop itself around what it is curious about, thus wombing it to develop it for itself. One time I had an Asian woman cough in my mouth. I filmed that it's... You filmed an Asian woman coughing in your mouth? That's weird. Anyway, as regards... hold on a second. Before... Oh, wait a minute. I'm out of place. So, was coming next and has forgotten what has gone before. Okay, that makes sense. And there's an annotation here. Let's see. All right, don't have to read that one. I only read the annotations that have some sort of English. Otherwise, I'm just reading German with no context, which sometimes I do it anyway because it looks fun. Is not a result that ensues only from curiosity, but is the ontological condition for curiosity itself. As regards their temporal meaning, the characteristics of falling, which we have pointed out, temptation, tranquilization, alienation, self-ecstatical tendencies, such that it seeks to temporalize itself out of itself. When Dasein entangles itself, this has an ecstatical meaning. Of course, when one speaks of the rapture with which one's existence is carried away in making present, this does not signify that Dasein detaches itself from its self and its I. Even when it makes present in the most extreme manner, it remains temporal, that is, awaiting and forgetting. In making present, moreover, Dasein still understands itself, though it has been alienated from its own most potentiality for being, which is based primarily on the authentic future and on authentically having been. But insofar as making present is always offering something new, it does not let Dasein come back to itself and is constantly tranquilizing it anew. This tranquilizing, however, strengthens in turn the tendency towards leaping away. Curiosity is activated not by the endless immensity of what we have not yet seen, but rather by the falling kind of temporalizing which belongs to the present as it leaps away. Let's see here. The third one I'm going to read. All right. Even if one has seen everything, this is precisely when curiosity fabricates something new. Everything is temporal, right? But like he's in the temporal section. Way earlier on, he's in the spatial section, right? And the spatial section is, something that like he beats it over your head in every way, over and over again as he's describing further and further layers away from your immediate sensual experience, right? The difference, this is why there's all sorts of present at hand, ready to hand, so on and so forth. Like this is present in hand, the lighter. The lighter is present in hand. So that means it is being directly in use. Just like my mouse is directly in use, right? Everything that is here in touch, right? And then there's all this stuff, that is what's going on in the room that I'm in, and the room is the limits of my physical senses. Then there is the existential, which is all in my mind, which is my knowing of what upstairs looks like, my knowing of what the basement looks like, my knowing of what's outside that door where my driveway is, and my expectations of what my driveway looks like, and the more and more existential, right? And so, you're getting into these layers of your experience of reality and how it moves around you as you are moving through your day, as you are the subjective. It's all about subjectivity, right? Like, I love this book because it's almost like the exact opposite of Ayn Rand's objectivity, which is more about, taking an object and understanding it inside and out and from every other conceivable angle and having a full understanding of its texture and so on. And so that's objectivity, right? And then showing it to someone else and comparing notes and finding agreement and making sure no details were missed. That's Ayn Rand's objectivity, right? This is Heidegger's subjectivity, where everything is coming into you as a singularity, right? And he talks a lot about Descartes in the beginning, and he puts big challenges on to think, therefore I am. And that gets into a lot of the reasons why Heidegger will hurt your brain, because most of us are in a Cartesian mode of thought, right? This will flip your psyche. This will give you a psyche angle to explore in your development in consciousness. Your mind is perceiving. Right, exactly. It all gets into the norns, right? There's a reason why the norn of the past is called Erd, which is also the earth. And and that implies the underworld, which is also where the dead go. And then you've got Verdandi, her of the present. Her name means worth, or the one who determines the value. She's the evaluator. That's what we call the present. And then skuld, which is literally the word should, as in what should I do? And her essence is effectively karma, consequences, decisions, judgments, right? She embodies all of these things, right? So that's what the future, the present, and the past actually are, when you understand the Norns. And when you understand the Norns, that's what makes you a damn good runic reader. All right. Even if one has seen everything, this is precisely when curiosity fabricates something new. As a mode of temporalizing, the leaping away of the present is grounded in the essence of temporality, which is finite, having been thrown into being towards death. Dasein flees proximally and for the most part in the face of this thrownness, which has been more or less explicitly revealed. Present leaps away from its authentic future and from its authentic having been, so that it lets Dasein come to its authentic existence only by taking a detour through the present. The leaping away of the present, that is the falling into lostness, has its source in that primordial, authentic temporality itself, which makes possible thrown being towards death. All right, we're reading this one. Der Ursprung des Entspringens der Gegenwart, das heißt des Verfallens in die Verlorenheit, ist die ursprünglich eigentlich zeitlich selbst die das Gehorchen sein zum Tod ermöglicht. I don't think I got that quite right. It's going to take me forever to get that going. What's up, Primetime Cards? Well, just as the title suggests, I am reading Being in Time by Martin Heidegger, who was low-key card-carrying Nazi. That's a fun fact that has nothing to do with his work. Our conventions for translating Ursprung as source, ursprünglich as primordial, and entspringen as leap away conceal Heidegger's exploitation of the root spring in this passage. While Dasein can indeed be brought authentically face-to-face with its thrownness, so as to understand itself in that thrownness authentically, nevertheless, this thrownness remains closed off from Dasein as regards the ontical whence and how of it. But the fact that it is thus closed off is by no means just a kind of ignorance. Factually subsisting, it is constitutive for Dasein's facticity. It is also determinative for the ecstatical character of the way existence has been abandoned to its own null basis. Proximally, the throw of Dasein's being thrown into the world is one that does not authentically get caught. The movement which such a throw implies does not come to a stop because Dasein now is there. Dasein gets dragged along in thrownness. That is to say, as something which has been thrown into the world. It loses itself in the world in its factical submission to that which, with which it is to concern itself. The present, which makes up the existential meaning of getting taken along, never arrives at any other ecstatical horizon of its own accord, unless it gets brought back from its lostness by a resolution, so that both the current situation and therewith the primordial limit situation of being towards death will be disclosed as a moment of vision which has been held onto. And it's so interesting how many times he demonstrates how so many things that arise within your Dasein have a tremendous amount to do with being towards death, the anticipation of being towards death. Even like the most mundane thing has a temporal relationship in steps of events that could happen that which makes your heart just quiver a little bit in the sense of, oh my God, I've seen a timeline of a possibility of a death I never want to have, right? Because I think everybody wants to, I think everybody just thinks about a time where they're pretty darn old, they're pretty darn tired, they'll just lay down a lot, and eventually they'll just die in their sleep. And I think that's how most people are just trying to get to that sad ending because nobody believes in Valhalla. So, it took me longer to read Part C than I thought, and so that means it's going to be a long way to the end. So we're going to listen to one more song, which is great because it's the last song on the album. So, hold on a second. I've got to bypass the obvious ad that's going to pop up. The last song was Yggdrasil. My understanding is that this album is a whole European paganism tribute kind of album. And so the last song is called Seorish, something. I don't know how to pronounce that one. I think this is one of the many songs on here that has some Greek singing in it, which sounds amazing. It's just and you know what? The Latin is fun to do these kinds of things, but let's be for fucking real, man. We can throw something new in the mix.
Flows across the sea. I'm the wave of the ocean. I'm a ray of the sun. I am the spear in the battle. River, Rinatara, Atri, Eilean.
That's such a nice break from the Latin. Such a nice break from the Latin. That's the new frontier right there, the old Greek. That's the new frontier. The Temporality of Discourse, Part D. Haven't seen too much activity in the chat. If you're just kicking about, just let me know. Let me know somebody out there with a heartbeat. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. Hit the bell notification so that way you'll notice when I do things like this. When the there has been completely disclosed, its disclosedness is constituted by understanding state of mind. Oh, hold on. Hold on! State of mind. Okay, and falling, and this disclosedness becomes articulated by discourse. Thus, discourse does not temporalize itself primarily in any definite ecstasis. Factically, however, discourse expresses itself for the most part in language and speaks proximally in the way of addressing itself to the environment by talking about things concernfully. Because of this, making present has, of course, a privileged constitutive function. Tense, like the other temporal phenomena of language, aspects and temporal stages, Zeitstufen, do not spring from the fact that discourse expresses itself also about temporal process encountered in time, nor does their basis lie in the fact that speaking runs its course in a psychical time. Psychic, right? Discourse in itself is temporal, since all talking about, of, or to is grounded in the ecstatical unity of temporality. Aspects have their roots in the primordial temporality of concern, whether or not this concern relates itself to that which is within time. The problem of their existential temporal structure cannot even be formulated with the help of the ordinary traditional conception of time, to which the science of language needs must have recourse. But because in any discourse one is talking about entities, even if not primarily and predominantly in the sense of theoretical assertion, the analysis of the temporal constitution of discourse and the explication of the temporal characteristics of language patterns can be tackled only if the problem of how being and truth are connected in principle is broached in the light of the problematic of temporality. We can then define even the ontological meaning of the is, which a superficial theory of propositions and judgments has deformed to a mere copula, only in terms of the temporality of discourse, that is, of Dasein in general. Can we clarify how signification arises and make possibility of concept formation ontologically intelligible? Understanding is grounded primarily in the future, whether in anticipation or in awaiting. States of mind temporalize themselves primarily in having been, whether in repetition or in having forgotten. Falling has its temporal roots primarily in the present, whether in making present or in the moment of vision. All the same, understanding is in every case a present which is in the process of having been. All the same, one's state of mind temporalizes itself as a future which is making present, and all the same, the present leaps away from a future that is in the process of having been, or else it is held onto by such a future. Thus, we can see that in every ecstasis, temporality temporalizes itself as a whole, and this means that in the ecstatical unity with which temporalizes itself as a whole, and this means that in the ecstatical unity with which temporality has fully temporalized itself currently, is grounded the totality of the structural whole of existence, facticity and falling, that is the unity of the care structure. Right, so time is the thing that holds the all together, to bring up the Hermetic principle of the all. Temporalizing does not signify that ecstasies come in a succession. The future is not later than having been, and having been is not earlier than the present. Temporality temporalizes itself as a future which makes present in the process of having been. Both the disclosedness of the there and Dasein's basic existential possibilities, authenticity and inauthenticity, are founded upon temporality, but disclosedness always pertains with equal primordiality to the entirety of being in the world, to being in as well as to the world. Before I finish the passage, I just wanted to go back and, because I think I like to comment on this sentence. Both the disclosedness of the there and Dasein's basic existential possibilities, authenticities and inauthenticities, are founded upon temporality. What I believe that means, as he has put things about, is that within your current Dasein, such as here I am in my room, very particularly here like this because of everything I can see, and somewhat behind me because of everything I can hear and feel and smell and etc. Right? So there are a bunch of possibilities of things that can happen that are authentic. Then there's a bunch of things that are maybe authentic, maybe inauthentic. I'm not as certain because of how they exist beyond my sensory perceptions, right? There could be a seismic disturbance below my feet. There could be something falling upon my home from the heavens, right? There may be trouble just outside this door. Right? It's the existential stuff that brings me towards death, right? All of those fears, you don't think about them all at the same time. Your imagination can only think of like one particular thing at the same time, right? When we do the multiverse thing in theory stuff, right? And why they were trying to portray this concept of multiverse of madness from the Marvel soft disclosure project that's obviously going on, combined with a serious psyop to fuck you up in the cabeza. And the issue is that they want you to be capable of imagining a Ragnarok so vividly that you manifest it, right? And that's how we got Avengers Endgame at the end of 2019. And they fulfilled their ritual. And then the Rainbow Warriors woke up, and now we're building. So, if we orient ourselves by the temporal constitution of disclosedness to the ontological condition for the possibility that there can be entities which exist as being in the world, must be something that may also be exhibited. Yay, it's midnight, and I did it. I did it. Next week will be the best chapter in the book, for all sorts of immature reasons. But anyway, Next time I read it, it'll be Temporality of Being in the World and the Problem of the Transcendence of the World, Chapter 69. And hopefully without further delay, tomorrow afternoon, I will be on Awaken Your Mind channel covering my Matrix 4 video, which we will do a pre-show interview and a post viewing interview. So the channel will be active for probably about 4 hours, will be my imagination. 2 hour, 45-minute video that I do. Maybe he'll speed it up. And then I'm imagining at least 15 minutes to half an hour on either side of that. All right. It could go longer. I'm fine with it going longer. I can run a marathon. I don't got much to do tomorrow. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Bye.